Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Angela here with Liz, and we're coming to you live from Stand United, where we have lots of great stuff to talk to you about this week, including the joint address to Congress that President Trump gave last night. We're very interested in hearing what you think, and that's why Liz is going to be monitoring our Facebook comments on this video. That's exactly right, so send us a note.
And we will pretty shortly have the links to all of the petitions we are going to be talking about pinned to the top. So if you like what we're talking about, check out our comment, find the petition, and sign and get involved in the conversation.
Definitely. So there's one big moment that everybody's talking about today that's been the talk around the office, and that is the moment with Corinne Owens last night at the address to the joint session of Congress. She is the widow of Ryan Owens, who was lost his life serving our country overseas, and President Trump had such an emotional moment with her. I believe you have the quote, right?
We do. So, this was a really emotional time for everyone. You could see Ivanka right next to her holding back the tears. But I think the quote that really stood out to me was, Ryan's legacy is etched into eternity, for as the Bible teaches us, there is no greater act of love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Ryan laid down his life for his friends and for his country and for our freedom, and we will never forget him.
That was just such a touching moment of the speech, and then he ad-libbed a little bit. He actually went off script, so we looked back at the transcript of what exactly did the president have to say in his first, well, not his first speech as president, but definitely the biggest one in Congress by a mile thus far.
For sure, yeah.
And he went off script and said, I think Ryan just broke a record because he got so much applause, as well he should. So it was a really sweet moment, and there's just so much to talk about with that speech. So we wanted to get started with immigration.
It's something that Trump did. He spent quite a bit of his speech last night talking about. He introduced his new Voice program, which is for victims of immigration, crime.
Right. It's going to be a fund that takes money originally set aside for illegal immigrants and reappropriates that money to people in America who are victims of crimes committed by illegal immigrants.
So going back to, there was a story, a year or two ago, of the young lady that was killed out in San Francisco
Katie Steinle,
who had been, deported multiple times. And just, going along with that, we have tons. This is the immigration and the illegal immigration thing is a huge thing that all of our listeners and people talk about all the time. We have tons of petitions, a lot, and it's a big issue for a lot of you guys.
That's right. And actually, at the speech, Trump had the close family of people who had been killed or harmed by illegal immigrants as a result of usually sanctuary city policies. He had those people in attendance to sort of show that this does affect people and it is a very real issue. And of course, that brings to mind our petition specifically about sanctuary cities. I know we talk about immigration quite a bit, but the sanctuary city petition is nearing 20,000 signatures. So it's really interesting. We hope you will check it out. Trump did not mention cutting off federal funding, though he has talked about it before.
Right. It wasn't something he specifically touched on last night. He didn't touch on the whole sanctuary city thing. And just as a reminder on how those work, sanctuary cities are cities that do not comply with federal law. When someone is arrested for a crime, the authorities are supposed to check their immigration status, and if they're here illegally, they should be reporting them to the federal authorities. Sanctuary cities are cities who flagrantly decide, we're not going to do that, whether it's some of them don't check immigration status at all, and if they do, they don't report it to the proper authorities. So, sanctuary cities, there are tons of them all over the country. They're not, It's not even just a coastal thing. There's cities in the Midwest that do this as well, who just don't care to comply with federal law.
So that covers us on immigration, though we did talk about having a merit system for legal immigration, the way that countries like Canada and Australia do. That was definitely something that we probably weren't expecting to hear, but it's an interesting part of his policy.
Right. I mean, and a quote from last night was just that I'm going to bring back millions of jobs. Protecting our workers also means reforming our system of legal immigration. The current outdated system depresses wages for our poorest workers and puts great pressure on taxpayers.
That's right. So, speaking of taxpayers, that kind of brings us to our next topic here. We have a petition that's brand new, totally new, it just went up on the site, that talks about a balanced budget amendment. So something that's interesting that's coming up. It's going to be a really big milestone for this country, not necessarily a good one. We're going to be $20 trillion in national debt very soon. Original predictions were that it would happen in February, but here we are on March 1st. We still haven't hit that 20 trillion. And it's one of those milestones that's not necessarily great because that's a huge debt issue.
Right.
So
we do have a comment really quick I wanted to address. Joe and Natalie said Dems showed their true colors last night and I hope they lose their jobs. We have lots of petitions about that, and there's a huge Senate election next year where a lot of them will be up for re-election.
They will absolutely be ones to watch in 2018. That's for certain. But as we talk about this balanced budget amendment that's being proposed, they're saying that Congress spends too much and they stick us with the bill. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. There's actually a great quote from Ronald Reagan. I didn't know this, I just learned that a balanced budget amendment has been in the works for decades. And it was sort of in progress during Reagan's time. And he has a really stunning quote about it, but I'm gonna make you click on the petition link if you wanna see it. He talks about having a balanced budget and a solvent national economy as a matter of national survival. And as he was known to do, he frames it in terms that are really fascinating, so we hope that you will check it out.
I mean, and this is something that Republicans have been working on for a long time. I know Rand Paul has introduced bills about it, as well as other senators, and it seems like now that there's a Republican unified in all parts of government, that maybe this is something that could actually happen.
Right, and it comes into play when President Trump talked last night about wanting to invest $1 trillion into infrastructure. That's really interesting because everybody has, their least favorite airport or a road that badly needs fixing or bridges that, sustain our shipping and trade. How we handle infrastructure is going to be a big deal. By big deal, I mean a very expensive one. And the money has to come from somewhere, and the House of Representatives decides all spending bills start in the House. So the balanced budget amendment is certainly something to watch for with this legislative session, especially from other Republicans and Democrats who might be trying to rein in federal spending.
And then we'll move on to one more thing that Trump just hit on briefly. NAFTA is something that we've been talking about for a while now. His quote last night about this was, "Currently, when we ship products out of America, many other countries make us pay very high tariffs and taxes."
It's true.
Which is something Angela has talked about multiple times. But when foreign companies ship their products into America, we charge them almost nothing. We have a NAFTA petition up. We've been sending emails. We've been talking to you guys about it. This is something that a lot of you guys have weighed on and saying, how it's hurt you personally one way or the other. And it's something that Trump might actually be able to make quite a bit of progress on.
Right. So what was interesting and sort of cool about Trump's speech was that he talked exactly about the de minimis thresholds that we address in the petition. So de minimis threshold is what value you can export without paying a tariff. In the United States, you can send us anything under $800 and we will let it into the country if you're a NAFTA member tax-free. When we ship to Canada and to Mexico, we have to pay a lot more tax on shipments that are way lower in value. So Trump talks about leveling the playing field, and we think that de minimis thresholds are a great place to start. So it's interesting, he also hinted about working with Justin Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister, on an entrepreneurship initiative. And as soon as he announced it, I don't know if you caught it or if anybody out there caught this moment, but the feed I was watching cut away to Elizabeth Warren, and you see her say, "What?" And I'm thinking, okay, Trump might have his first critic on that proposal. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. And we also have, in addition to things that tie into Trump's speech last night, we've got some great petitions this week that deal with specifically media issues. We hear from you guys all the time about what you guys think of the press, where you get your news, how you learn about things that might be a little bit off the beaten path. And we have two really interesting art and media topics. You want to kick off with the play?
Sure. So we had a really great organic petition started last week. It's probably been up less than a week now.
That's pretty new.
So started by Miss Stephanie Patz.
Hi, Stephanie.
She wrote this petition about this Chicago's Revival Theater, which is it's a pretty big theater with a lot of stand-up comedies and plays. And one of the comedians there started a play called Barron Trump Up Past Bedtime, where the comedian plays Barron Trump, and it kind of pokes fun at Trump using a child. But she made a valid point that, if this were something about like Sasha or Malia,
right,
everyone would be offended about it. But because it's Barron Trump and he's been getting a ridiculous amount of hatred in the past 90 days, that nobody seems to care as much, and they try to play it off as not a big deal. So she made this petition just that the Revival Theater should ban this particular comedian and stop airing this play, which I think is a great thing. And it's something, it's gotten over 1,500 signatures in less than a week, and it's something that a lot of you guys touch on for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea. So the concept of, she says she's not antagonizing Barron Trump, but when you're playing a kid on stage and he's the narrator, and she also has someone playing Ben Carson, someone playing Vladimir Putin, it's an extremely political play. So the idea that someone says, I don't think there's a place for this in my community, is pretty powerful. We think that's really interesting. Now there's...
We've got a comment from David going back to our sanctuary cities.
All right.
Sanctuary cities are illegally violating federal laws. Just like people don't get to decide which laws they want to follow, cities don't get to choose which laws they will follow. If they decide to violate the law, then they should be penalized. That is a really great comment, David.
Yeah, that's well said.
You should sign the Sanctuary Cities petition and post that. It would be awesome.
Absolutely. All right, so our last media petition is actually about a podcast. I don't know if anybody out there is a podcast fan. I know I have one or two that I listen to, but this one is really cool. It's called the Remso Republic. It is a conservative/libertarian podcast. I've been a guest on the show, which is how I know Remso, the host, and his brother, who's also his producer, Ryan. They are totally a startup. They're two young kids, very entrepreneurial, trying to get this thing started, and they want to become a content partner for The Blaze, which is Glenn Beck's network.
And that's a great opportunity for them. The Blaze is pretty good about hiring young people and giving them a voice. Tommy Lauren is a huge viral sensation based out of The Blaze. She's 24 years old, so I feel like this is an awesome opportunity for them, and if they got picked up by The Blaze, that would be huge.
Yeah, they've done a really great job of publicizing this petition to their listeners and rallying people on social media. So to think that every petition starts at 0 signatures, right? And there's, for two brothers who are trying to make something happen in conservative media, they're doing remarkably well. So they've been very supportive of Stand United and what we do here. So we are excited to see our community kind of rally around them. It's very exciting. We also have some exciting stuff for you guys to look forward to.
Right.
On Friday, we're going to have a new Facebook Live broadcast Friday morning with our wonderful interns. You're going to get to meet John and Megan. They're so great. We're really excited to introduce you to them. And you're going to be able to tune in and see about what they've been working on and the great ideas and proposals that they've come up with.
We've got lots of new stuff going on this year, so just keep tuning in as we roll out more of our exciting things that's going on. Thank you so much for tuning in with us.
Absolutely. Check back on Friday. I made John and Megan try Common Core math. You guys.
It'll be I cannot wait. This is going to be a good video.
It was really funny. It was tough, but it was funny. So come back on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.